If I could go back in time and tell my 11-year-old self one thing about Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's that the show Reboots will change the way you view cinema forever. As a fan, you're addicted to the original story you fell in love with. However, like a breakup, you realize that there's no way to recapture the magic that you once found. Yet, through it all, no matter how much the show hurts you, you will always come back for more. Netflix's 2024 reboot of Avatar: The Last Airbender has pushed fans to their limit. Ever since this live-action Avatar has been announced, fans have been having traumatic flashbacks. M. Night Shyamalan literally broke these people. But for those that have somehow blocked this from their memory, let me remind you why it was so bad. This movie somehow got a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that doesn't even begin to describe the pain that this movie put people through. The acting is excruciating, but if that doesn't want to make you put yourself out of your misery, then the dialogue will. If you haven't watched it, the brave soldiers at Rotten Tomatoes have seen it, so you don't have to. The worst film of the year. Mediocrity and abuse of slow motion. Visually catastrophic. Which is actually saying something because you know the internet would watch someone eat Tide Pods. Shyamalan is your trickster guide on a journey into nothingness, from which only your soul-dead shadow will ever return. Damn bro, Jesus Christ, someone has to pay for your therapy. Even at the time, many fans called into question how this film was even funded. How can you mess up this bad with a $150 million budget? The big Shyamalan twist is that he's holding a gun to the actors off screen. There is absolutely no charisma. And I know child actors are notoriously bad, but not this bad. If you're gonna pick actors that don't look anything like the original characters, then they might as well be good. But the most unforgivable part is that the studios didn't learn from their mistakes. Money and commercial appeal are always put before artistic integrity. And fans found that out the hard way in September of 2018. Now, if the Netflix show came out February 22nd, 2024, then that means that the filmmaker has had over 6 years to fix it. So where did things first go wrong? Fans realized there was no saving the show after the original creators abandoned the production. In 2020, they left due to creative differences. Brian, one of the original creators, expressed his frustration on social media. When Netflix brought me on board to run this series alongside Mike 2 years ago, they made a very public promise to support our vision. Unfortunately, there was no follow-through on that promise. Brian stated that he was working in a negative and unsupportive environment. So what were these creative differences that were so divisive? For starters, Netflix wanted to make sure that everyone was older. However, to give Netflix credit, this might have been because of the child actor Shyamalan incident. No one wanted to repeat history. Furthermore, Netflix theorized that the Avatar: The Last Airbender fanbase had grown and matured with the show. They thought that people could relate more to characters closer to their age. And given that the show aired over a decade ago, a new approach might have been refreshing. However, fans saw this as another betrayal. While the studio made these efforts to appeal to a broader audience, core fans were not happy. These creative decisions appeared to be motivated by financial incentive. To make matters worse, fans thought that older characters would be sexualized, and this was the last straw. Fans demanded change and started a massive petition. They fought for a more accurate representation of the original characters. The characters depicted throughout the show are of Asian and Inuit descent. They requested that Netflix honor the creator's original vision. With over 15,000 signatures, the studio was forced to respond. Netflix eventually caved to the pressure. For the 2024 show, a new cast was selected. And while it might make fans of the original Shyamalan movie mad, these characters weren't white. The ethnicity of the characters actually reflected the diversity of the original show. But just when we thought things were looking up, everything went wrong. 2024's Avatar: The Last Airbender leaves the internet divided. The polarizing reactions seem justified. From what I've gathered, people are most upset about the tone and pacing of the show. Exposition is just being thrown down your throat. The character development feels like a speedrun in a video game. Everyone's an NPC following a really vague dialogue tree. Early on in the show, there's no intrigue and mystery. They just keep force-feeding you dialogue with lazy exposition. What is this half-baked mess of a script? The best way that I can describe this show is it feels like the bare minimum. It reminds me of Game of Thrones Season 8. I don't feel emotionally connected to the characters because the pacing is so off. It feels like they're trying to cram so much into so few episodes. Every character feels like a one-dimensional version of who they were in the show. While it is miles better than the Shyamalan disaster, the tone is still a little bit serious and confusing. The beauty of the original show was that the characters developed and matured over time. The characters in the original show acted like children. There were more antics and humor to humanize the perspective. Over time, those characters changed and became more responsible. This rushed pacing does a bad job at portraying the more endearing qualities of these characters. It's less relatable and harder to appreciate their journey. It's worth noting though that I haven't finished the show, so maybe my perspective will change with time. But so far, it's not looking good. Why is Aang flying without a glider in the first episode? This feels more and more like what Disney did to Star Wars. And I never want to relive Luke Skywalker throwing his lightsaber and people teleporting items through the Force. George Lucas was also pushed away by Disney because of creative differences. Avatar and Star Wars show that a desire to make something more universally appealing does not always make a better product. But Netflix can't hear your cries over all the money they're making. But this isn't the only way that corporations are exploiting Avatar. Avatar: The Last Airbender is coming to Fortnite. This is all the evidence you need that we're living in the darkest timeline. Now we finally get to see the Darth Vader versus the Avatar showdown. Let me know if you'd rather airbend or have the Force. The new show tries to right some wrongs, but it doesn't go far enough. You may alienate your fans trying to market to a broader audience and increase profits, but that's the cost of doing business. Follow the madness.